How did your parents fuck you up big time? Constantly talked about money problems. Now I feel guilty whenever I need to buy anything. When I was 12, my mom told me girls might try to trick me into sexual situations in order to accuse me of raping them. Fucked me up real good. Subtly disapprove and shame me for things but never actually explicitly communicate disapproval, so they always had plausible deniability. So now I am trying to learn that, for example, it's okay to like things, and that being cold is not a moral failing. Mother decided that I was mentally deficient autistic from a young age and yelled at government people until I was tossed in with the people who actually were. You know that gag in films where they pull out a list, and the list is so heavy it drops to the ground and leaves a trail as it rolls into the next room? Yeah, that. I have dyscalculia and some learning difficulties in general, with concentration problems and all that jazz. When I was young, my grades weren't high like my mother wanted them to be, so I spent a majority of my childhood shut up in my room with lots of maths exercise books and extra credit homework day after day with no idea what the fudge I was doing. She didn't know back then that I had these problems, but boy I wish she did. Now, I barely have any social skills. I'm panicky when it comes to anything work related and I am unable to function at all in stressful situations because I was taught from an early age that failure got me punished. On the upside, I'm very good at keeping secrets from my parents. Sometimes when my mom would go out drinking then come home drunk, she would wake me up to basically use me to vent all the bullspit in her life that I shouldn't have been hearing about at that age. Eventually I realized that whenever she would do this she'd let me stay home from school the next day, so I would make sure I was in the living room when she got home to make sure I was there for her to vent to and get a day off. I remember when I was like 13, my dad told me matter-of-factly, "I love you but I don't like you." This was after finally talking to him after 3 years cause he was very abusive to my mom. It stuck with me a long time, but now at 32, I know the feeling was mutual. My parents never had any sort of disagreement in front of us, ever. We never had family discussions about anything negative. Their intentions were good but left me unable to effectively communicate with others. Didn't exactly fudge me up but made sure I never stole anything late at night. When I was little I was shopping somewhere with my dad when I noticed there were nails coming from the ceiling. When I asked him about it he told me if someone was stealing stuff from the store late at night the store would lock down and the ceiling would slowly come down killing whoever was in the store or something like that. TLDR, ceiling armed with nails kills intruders late at night. My dad was emotionally and verbally abusive. He's yelled at me for basically not being an adult. He favored my brother as well. My mom didn't really let me explore things or push me to do things. She let me quit taekwondo after just 4 weeks. She used that as an excuse to not let me join sports or other activities. Well, they gave birth to me, so they dropped me on my head multiple times as a baby. Does that count? Didn't teach me a single thing about girls, sex, relationships, etc. My sister, not parents, always stepped on the back of my shoe when I walked, even though I was walking at normal speed. So now I think I'm conditioned to walk faster than other people I know who quite frequently ask me why I'm in such a rush, offering me the opportunity to blame them for my failures. Well, my dad abused me for starters. They had me. I used to always think everything was my fault. Guy gets a scrape. Oops, my bad. Anything I felt bad over, and when my parents got a divorce, that didn't work with 6-year-old me being my pessimistic self. Ended up with my mom getting remarried to a stepdad that really hates me, and he made me dwell on everything I did, and making me want to commit suicide on multiple occasions. Even small mistakes, a word that describes what I think of myself. Not gonna help with school coming back soon. Hate me if you want, quite a few people do. Edit, my retarded Ash thought this was my first post, damn it. Getting divorced because of me. IDK. We have fudging while I am in the room, supposedly asleep, but come on. Fully disregarding anything I wanted to do as a kid, except playing golf. I was really into golf. Getting my ass kicked by my 8 years older brother on a daily basis without much help from my parents. The time after their divorce. My mom would blame me for her fudge ups. How can you blame a 7-year-old for missing the exit on the highway? Seriously? While in high school, I applied for a college. They checked the mail, got my acceptance letter, put the letter up to give to me and forgot about it. They found it a year later. They had me constantly telling me I ruin everything. Rough divorce process that lasted nearly 3 years had me constantly stressing over picking sides and constantly going back and forth. Dad used to compare my brother and I to other people's kids. Also, if you made the mistake of sharing your dreams with him, he'd quickly nitpick everything and immediately go into why they wouldn't work. Thirdly, for me, the daughter, whenever I become emotional over something, he accused me of having mental issues. That is, he could say something nasty about me or my friends. The second I defend them with an ounce of passion, he goes, "You need to calm down. You say you want kids in the future but you might too unstable and childish to have them." My mom told me I was causing my own depression. She also has told me to get over it. Told me if I played with fire, it'll wet the bed. They let me drive on a restricted license when I was 16. Thinking I wouldn't remember the hurtful comments. Even years later, they still get to me. Growing up, I was constantly told that dating and having crushes was forbidden and completely against the rules. Now I'm 20 and have never had a relationship and the whole relationship thing is so foreign to me. Now I have lots of random sex with random people who I don't have any feelings for. My dad never was around. I've never knowingly and don't care. It pretty much started with them having sex. My mom had drinking problems when I was young and even though she stopped drinking many years ago it still affects me to this day. Smoking, which causes my clothes to reek of smoke and possibly give me lung cancer from secondhand smoking. My mum raised me with no input from any males. I mean, she had boyfriends but none moved in or anything. No uncles, dad, grandfather, male cousins. Her closest friend was in exactly the same situation, so again no regular contact with any males except at school. Went to a girls' school from 11-18. I can count on two hands the number of men I feel comfortable around. I sometimes joke that she was preparing me for my eventual career, heavily female dominated, but the fact is, men make up half of the population and not feeling comfortable around them has definitely had a negative effect. My mom telling me she hates me and that I'm a regret. The most noticeable thing is that they steamrolled me when I talked as a kid. So I talk fast all the time and when people interrupt me I shut down and won't try to finish my thought unless I'm asked specifically what I was starting to say. Also my parents never showed affection in front of me and even at 35 I'm uncomfortable seeing people being romantic with each other. Probably why I'm forever alone as well. Father drunk drove and crashed and killed 4 people, himself included. He was an abusive dong. Honestly, giving birth to me in the first place when neither one of them had any business having kids. Don't get me wrong, I love existence. Not thanks to them, though. My dad's a hoarder and I have to fight the hoarder side he instilled in me. Also brother taught me how to do chores when I was 16 after he realized neither of my parents taught me more than how to reorganize the hoards to make paths and how to stack them so they wouldn't fall easily. My father joined a cult that was a weird religion pyramid scheme thing that stole his money. It fudged up my views on religion and finances. When I was about 4-9 years old, that's what your grandfather said all the time, everything man touches turns to spit, several times. My parents moved to Germany when I was 12. I spent the next 10 years there, and because of where we lived, I didn't have much in the way of friends for damn near a decade. I knew almost nobody but 2 people. The language barrier made it difficult as I was too self-conscious to speak German in front of other people, and I ended up becoming incredibly reclusive. I just kind of withdrew from society and became introverted. I grew up alone, and to this day still feel more comfortable being alone than with other people. I wasn't always like this though, and I sometimes have trouble functioning in large groups because of it. My dad dated a bunch of girls and all of them basically decided we get to keep their kids, so I lived with 11 other kids. I was the youngest and I would get picked on all the time. Dad would verbally and physically abuse my brothers while my sisters had to make sure I was safe. Dad ended up doing drugs and abandoned us. Mom became a sex addict and whatnot. Now I have 11 messed up siblings including myself. Mom is doing better though. All this stuff happened when I was younger and I had no idea what was going. So thanks Mom and Dad. My mother treated our relationship as a rivalry meant to make me surpass her in adulthood. I ended up being successful, but we needed a few years of healing after I was independent of her. Dating a drug addict. She went to jail. My grandpa bought a house for us and my dad with a specific rule that she wasn't allowed over. My mom got a court order that she wasn't allowed near us children. My dad also adopted her daughter who was sent into foster care and she wasn't allowed to see her daughter, my little sister, not by blood but IJAF, unless it was supervised visits. And guess who's moving in with my dad and grandpa? Grandpa is pissed about it and will possibly kick my dad out. And that's the story of why I always stay at my mom's house. Edit. Current event. I'm still 14. Simple. Me. My dad was very strict, stingy as fudge, never apologized when he was in the wrong and hit me, as in quite painful slaps over the head. He's not a bad man per se but a spitty father. Worst thing is that I have to see my little brother go through it all now and can't do much because I moved out 8 years ago. My brother is kinda difficult as well, bad in school etc. So my dad has a lot of reasons to speak very disparagingly of him and mock him. I've been in therapy for a while because of depression and my therapist back then made me realize that I probably didn't get enough love as a child. One sentence kinda shattered my self-esteem. I used to have a favorite, it was, insert my name, but now she isn't anymore, harder to take care of. At the time I was an angsty and depressed teen and the only thing I held on to was that my mom loved me. I knew that I wasn't her favorite because I used to do everything she said and hide my feelings. When I became a human with complex emotions I was now trying to quote unquote hurt her. She fudgied me up real bad. Always talked about other kids that did better at school than me. Now I have when someone thinks to be better at doing something than someone and I feel like a failure. My stepdad would tell me and my half siblings in a dire situation, he would save our mother over us. Double quote. I can have more kids. As an adult, this is the kind of love I looked for. I found domestic violence instead. Take out the up. Hit me for every little mistake I made. This one time I got a blood blister when my dad hit me for spilling soup on the table. Now every time someone reaches for me, hug, handshake, I flinch. Yet I long for an affectionate hug. They made me parentified. Can't blame them, though, because it's kind of cultural thing. I've managed most household affairs, especially the kitchen. Now I have mad cooking skills. I can even serve cooked chicken from its live form. My parents decided to put me in a low quality university in order to save money for their house. Their house is still unfinished. They praised my intelligence rather than any effort I put in. Needless to say, I plateaued. I lived with my grandparents and it was always slow goings at my house. No bustling around, no rushing about. It was always fairly calm and relaxed. As a result, I never needed to think fast or adapt a fast-paced, hard-working lifestyle. I wasn't exposed to social contact, which now results in me being anxious socially. I was forced to go places I didn't want to go to, which now results in me associating many places with hatred and boredom. Religion was drilled into me, which now results in me developing a phobia of hell even though I'm atheist. I did become good at programming though, since my PC was my only friend lol. Moved my 7 years younger brother and I from a bustling suburbia to the middle of nowhere. Then, since we had no friends, family, or after school care options, essentially made me my brother's nanny. From 13 to 16, I had no life outside of school. By calling me names, making me the least favorite, hitting me, saying I was ugly, Complaining about my personality etc. Stayed together for the kids. What's your story OP? They didn't. And that seems to be abnormal. They were racist. Well, my dad unzipped his pants and you probably know the rest. Yelling, as a kid, when I would ask questions my dad called me an idiot for not knowing. He asks me to get something from other room and within seconds will yell if I can't find it. Now as an adult, I kind of panic when I have to do something when people are watching. I struggle in interviews when it's a panel interviewing me, though I figured out the root cause. I find it difficult to change. Of course this is minor compared to the kind of abuse others have faced as kid. If you are a parent, don't yell at kids to take your frustration out.